Good morning and welcome to episode 3 of Dr. V's coaching, episode 4, Dr. V's coaching corner.
Hello,
I've got
Alan.
Dr. Veronica De La Rosa on. Dr. V, yourself. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, the 4th episode. I'm excited of this Boost Your Self-Confidence series that we're doing together.
You know, Dr. V, I think it's been 2 months. The last episode we did was actually 8th of December. That was episode 3. So we've had a break. You've had your time to think about the next topic. So today, Dr. V, for episode 4, what do we talk? What's on the coach's shelf?
It's funny that you mentioned that because actually we're going to talk today about standing up to yourself. And
so not to be confused with standing up for yourself, but
yes, not to be confused. And I'm going to just get into that a little bit more. And it's just funny because it's because of this break that we took that it gave me a little bit more time to think. This was a topic that was not originally when we were planning the series, but just I was reviewing the ones that we did before and just looking for where are we heading. I thought it might be convenient to insert this one in the middle. Nice. So you might remember that in the past episodes of Boost Your Self-Confidence series, we were talking about the 3 reasons why self-confidence leads to success, right? So in our past episodes, we talked about the first 2. It gives you the drive to start things. It gives you the ability to say no, but also to say yes. And the third one that we were supposed to be talking today is it gives you the ability to stand up for yourself. But then when I was preparing this, as I said, I started thinking that before talking about having self-confidence leads to success because it gives you the ability to stand up for yourself, I needed to talk about how self-confidence leads to success because it gives you the ability to stand up to yourself. There's a subtle difference, right? It's just one preposition. But
so I'm just, and before I'll let you expand on this, but I'm thinking yourself, it usually prevents you from doing things. Individual, like back to, I think it was earlier, you and I had a discussion about that swimming, getting up 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning, that first 10 seconds. Yourself, you talk yourself out of
those first 5 seconds.
Was it 5 seconds? Okay.
Mel Robbins, 5 seconds, yes.
So I don't have 10 seconds. I only have 5. Sorry, Mel.
Oh, you only have 5, so you have to speed up.
So I would guess that when you say standing up to yourself is like, listen to self, stop being the doubter, or, talking me out of these things.
You got it. That's exactly what we're going to be talking today. So when you see the meaning, right? Standing up for yourself means advocating for your own needs,
yes,
interests, values, right? Especially when you're being threatened and undermined by someone else.
Right.
It involves setting boundaries, communicating assertively, and taking action to protect yourself from harm or mistreatment, right? Standing up for yourself can be empowering and can help you build your self-confidence, but it's also part of this virtuous circle. The more you do it, the more self-confidence you have. The more self-confidence you have, the more you can stand up for yourself. And on the other hand, standing up to yourself means challenging your own negative self-talk, limiting beliefs, self-destructive behaviors, right? It involves recognizing when you are holding yourself back or sabotaging your own success and taking steps to overcome these patterns. Standing up to yourself can be difficult, right? Because it requires facing our own fears, doubts, and insecurities. But it leads to personal growth and, again, a stronger sense of self-confidence. Another vicious circle, right?
It's a slight, as you said, it's a slight nuance from for yourself to yourself. So,
but it is a big difference in meaning. And both, of course, both are important. Standing up to and for yourself are both important for personal growth, for developing self-confidence, for continuing this virtuous circle. And because by standing up for yourself, you're asserting your own needs and values, while standing up to yourself involves challenging the beliefs and behaviors that may be holding you back from reaching your full potential, right? And both practices require courage and self-awareness and can lead to greater confidence and self-assurance. So don't worry, in our next episode, we're going to be talking about standing up for yourself.
Okay, so let's step back. I mean, and maybe it's not part of your
No.
Present. I'm thinking, when do you start? What comes first, the chicken or the egg? Standing up for yourself or to yourself? And I think stand up to yourself first comes first. So what are the
Yes.
signals or signs that people would, where you would need to
Like you are totally right. That's what I was just when I was preparing standing up for yourself. I'm like, I think I have a little missing piece here that I should probably. And then I started a conversation, and then I was like, yes, that's it. This is standing up to yourself, right? Like it's so today that's what we're going to be talking about this, because at the end of the day, confidence doesn't come from your outward achievements. It comes from within.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to talk about that just in a minute. I just want to, I know it's probably, they said, how you work in marketing, so you know this. How many times you have to repeat a message? We get it. I don't know, it's 17 times, 15 times for us to really,
Yeah, well, and I had a podcast chat a couple of years ago, and 𝗘𝗽𝗶𝘀𝗀𝗃 from his marketing company, I can't remember, the name is slipping, but he said before the internet, before kind of, said 5 to 6 touching points to get people's attention. Today, with the internet and amount of decision makers and they have access to information, it could be up to 25 to 30 different touching points. The trail where someone makes a decision to buy your product or service. So
Right.
so the marketing of it is much more evolved.
But it's not only that, not only selling. I mean, the points the touching points have increased a number big, but also I teach, right?
Yeah.
I teach secondary education, and I teach at SAIT. And when I'm with the students, I know that there are certain key concepts that I have to keep repeating, right? Because if I just say them once, it's not.
Oh, I see. So to memorize,
not to memorize, almost to internalize the concept.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? So that's what I'm just going to talk again about what is self-confidence, right? So it's this feeling of self-assurance and trust in our abilities, our qualities, our judgment too, right? Like, am I doubting myself, right? It's your judgment to it. And while external factors such as praise and validation from others can contribute to confidence, ultimately confidence comes from within. Is a result of a positive self-image, a sense of competence, and the belief that you're capable of handling challenges and achieving your goals. Right? And what I'm going to be talking today is internal confidence. Internal confidence, inward confidence, inner confidence. Is that's that sense that comes from within oneself, right? Is truly believing in our values, abilities, our decisions. And not because anyone is praising us and someone's telling us that we are valuable, that we have value, is because we really believe in our own value.
It reminds me, I'm smiling on there because it reminds me of, there was a Saturday Night Live character, or Jack Handy. And he literally would turn to himself, he'd turn to the mirror, I'm good enough. And gosh darn it, I like so it's like, it was called Jack Handy's daily affirmations or something like that. I mean, they put a pun on that because I think 20, 30 years ago, there were a lot of those, there's gurus out there to help you with your self-confidence. And it wasn't the internet, because it was before the days of internet. So you relied on TV or magazines. So I think it's going back to that. Yes. Today with social media and how things look, how you look, how they look, and you just have so many, success. This person's successful. I was in his class, or this, so you have so many triggers out there that would go against your inner self. It just reminds me of that. How then you had a show, and okay, and then you could talk in the mirror, right?
I think I'm smiling because I'm a self-confidence guru.
Yeah.
You mentioned all these self-confidence gurus. I'm here. I'm your self-confidence guru. So but see, like it's not about this external validation. It's more about a strong sense of self-worth.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so it's this outward confidence or external confidence is more that one that we project to others, right? It's how we appear, the level of confidence that we display in social situations, And there's a lot of people who might be very skilled in this outwards confidence, right? Or better say, very skilled in presenting themselves in a confident manner. But they might still struggle with self-doubt or insecurity internally.
I still reminded when you say, every time you talk about, people having confidence, I go back to your comments in one of our earlier chats when you talk about, I had to make a presentation. I think it was in high school, one of your classes, and you had to give a presentation, and was kind of forced you to talk about, in a uncomfortable, most people are uncomfortable talking in public, whether it's 10 people or 5 or 30 or 100. So you remind me every time I listen to you speak about that, you take me back to when you were younger and your professor or teacher who put you in that situation.
Yes, exactly. And so with this, both inwards and outwards confidence are important for our well-being. Today, we're going to be talking about inwards confidence, internal confidence, inner confidence. And then in our next episode, we're going to be focusing more in that outwards confidence, right? Because it's for job. And if they go hand in hand, if you feel very confident inside, you have this confidence put within you, but you don't know how to present yourself, you don't know how to be assertive, you're not going to be successful. And on the other hand, if you know very well how to present yourself, but deep down you're doubting, at some point you're going to self-sabotage. Right? So you have to have both to have this balance, a healthy balance, right, of self-assurance and self-worth.
Right. Good.
So as we mentioned already, we're going to be talking about this inner confidence. It requires self-awareness. It requires self-acceptance, and also the willingness to embrace one's strengths and weaknesses. It involves cultivating a positive mindset, focusing on your achievements and successes, rather than dwelling in mistakes or failures, right? We'll love to do that. It also involves practicing self-care, setting realistic goals, taking small steps towards personal growth and development, so you can build this inner confidence, right? Surrounding yourself with positive people. So there's many things that you can do to improve or boost your inner self-confidence. And so today I'm going to give you some tips, as I always do, right? Some very practical steps that we can follow to boost our inner self, or to boost our confidence from within.
It's incredible when again, there are competing forces, so needing that balance, because and I think people, and I was listening to a podcast with an artist. He was talking about, my mom kept saying, you got to get a job, you got to get a job. Well, I do have a job. I'm an artist, I'm a musician. And eventually he got that, he had so I think he had the inner confidence to go that next level, but he had the competing force of saying, hey, this isn't good enough. You're not making money off of this.
Right.
And I'll share who that was. It's a little company called Black Eyed Peas, or a musician called will.i.am. And he was describing that, the competing forces. He had the confidence in inner confidence, but he had the external pressure. So I literally, if you don't know his success, there's certainly plenty of literature on that. But it just reminds me, wow, that's everyone out there today. There's a competing forces. So how do you let's start there. Back to, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's the inner. Inner is precedent for. It sounds like it must be the precedent. It must be the first priority first. Let's take care of your inner self.
Yes, let's. So the first step, what I will do is, 3 is my lucky number. So I will do 3 steps, and three items, three action items or 3 tips to improve your confidence from within. And each one of those action items will have 3 steps, just to make it easier.
Okay.
Right. So the first one will be quiet your inner critic.
Ooh.
Like, now that we have a better understanding of why, before talking about how self-esteem allows you to succeed in the outside world, we should talk about how self-esteem allows you to come into terms with that internal conflict. Just what you were saying, that internal conflict that is holding you back.
Yeah.
That voice in your head can be sometimes, let's talk, we'll talk in a minute about this, external voices, right? But let me start internally. I always like to work from the inside out. So let's talk about that voice before even focus, because the more you strengthen that internal voice, the less you're going to listen to the external ones.
They remind me again, there was a Seinfeld episode. The little man, what's the little man in your head? What does the little man in your head say? The little man's an idiot. That was George saying something, the little man's an idiot, because it's, solving it with the little man or little person in your head. So
yeah, right. So let's start looking at how we can quiet that inner critic. So this negative or self-defeating voice in your head that can hold you back from achieving your goals, from living the life you want, that limits your potential, right? That prevents you from taking action or makes you feel stuck or helpless. We'll have had it. Like, it sounds something along the lines of, I'm not smart enough to succeed. I'll never be able to find a fulfilling career. I'm not attractive enough to have a happy relationship. I'm not worthy of love or respect. I will fail at everything I do. I'm too old or too young to start something new. Right? We all have that. So this voice in your head that can be persistent and sometimes overwhelming. Sounds familiar? I can tell you that for me, it sounds familiar. Like, I'm not saying, oh, because I work in self-confidence, I never hear that voice. Of course I hear that voice, right? I just know how to quiet it. Sometimes it's harder, sometimes it's easier, but at least I have a method that I follow. And that's what I want to share with you.
That's, I think if anybody says they've never had it, then, that it's that maybe they're so confident, but I think I would see from a child right through to your university, whatever situation, you've named off 17 situations, and I'm sure there are another 100 or so that could be easily, situations could be put into that list.
Yeah, and if somebody says that they've never had it, either they are lying or they have zero self-awareness.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I don't think that there's one person that never had it. And is especially I think it gets louder every time we're ready for the next level in our life, right? When you're starting a new job, when you are doing something new, when you're starting a new project, that is when it just gets louder. A new relationship, a new partnership, like, then is because you don't know, because it's this uncertainty, right? That makes you doubt yourself. So what can we do in those cases, right?
Yeah.
How can we, now that we know that we recognize that the voice is there, well, let me give you some practical steps so you can get that voice quiet. So it's not driving the bus, right? Because the problem is when it's driving the bus and then you can't do anything because you're listening to this and you're just doing what this voice is telling you. I just make a note here that we should not confuse this negative talk with intuition, right? With listening to an intuition. It's a different voice. And we're going to talk about that in a moment.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
This is this negative voice that's self-defeating. So let's start by identifying it. That's the first step, self-awareness. You have to identify it. It sounds very almost silly, but it's the first step. You have to become aware that it's happening. You have to become aware that it's happening. Just notice the thoughts and beliefs that are contributing to your self-talk. And you might have a go-to one, right? Like you might have the go-to message that you're receiving constantly. And so that's the first step. You have to identify it. Because once you identify them, you're able to challenge them. You're able to just take a moment and say, ask yourself, are these thoughts really true? Is there evidence to support them?
This is literally similar to the discussion I had with the folks over at Shirt Psychology, and it was that thing. It's like, look into yourself. Why did that upset me? Like, it was, the example was somebody cut you off in the car, so that kind of road rage. And he said, if you step back, why were you afraid? Were you, why were you angry? Were you afraid it was a dangerous situation? And that literally changed the perspective of how you're thinking about the other person. It was your inner thoughts, or, oh, that guy cut me off. He said, what was it? Were you scared? And that literally, like, yeah, I could have got into an accident. My child was in the car. you know, like literally it changed the perspective so that that's probably why I got angry. I was scared. So sorry, this is incredible because you identify or create awareness. Like wait a minute, why am I afraid of this speech, or why am I afraid that I'm not good enough? Like, so thank you. This is incredible. It's consistent with what some of the experts out there in other fields.
Right? This is the hardest part to do. I mean,
Yeah.
once you are aware and you identify that negative self-talk, you are, I would say, 70% ahead already, because
you change it. You change
right?
the perspective immediately, and is what you just said. Identify. So why are you having this?
You might not change your perspective immediately. Sometimes you might need to look for evidence.
Well, you're injecting something. You're injecting a piece that changes it slightly, right, even if it's just a slight tweak. The volume. Wait a minute. It lowers the volume, as you said earlier.
Right. Why it's a little bit. Right. Let's take, for example, this one, that I'm too old to start something new. Right. Maybe we need to find evidence. Like, okay, I identify. Okay, I'm thinking this. I'm too old to start something new. And then, am I really too old? And then, can I find any evidence that supports that or not? Right? Like and then you can look. There's a lot.
There's plenty of evidence. Go to the graveyard. It all died with them. Those ideas died with them. No, I don't mean it. But the ideas of not starting something, it will die with you.
Right.
Or you can do something about it right there where you said, am I too old? No, because I'm not dead. I'm still alive. That could be the practical thing.
I love that. Exactly. Right. You're still alive. And there's plenty of evidence of people who have started new things.
Yes.
At different ages.
Ray Kroc. If you don't know who Ray Kroc is, he's the founder of McDonald's, and he was a salesman selling milkshake machines. And he went down to somewhere, I think it was in Arizona, and they wanted two milkshake machines, the restaurant. So he went to, I don't know exactly where it was, but he went because he's like, why? Everyone else is buying one. Why are these guys buying two? Because they had the traffic. So he said, I got to, that was, and I think he was in his late 50s. Maybe 50. I think he was pretty old when he started McDonald's.
Right. I know, for example, Louis Hay, which is a Hay House, a big editorial house for personal development in the United States. But they translate their books to many languages, and they sell all over the world. And she started the business when she was 60. And then she was probably doing very well by 80. Yeah. And so you have different people. Like there's a TED Talk. Let me see if when we post this, I might just link that. I'll send it to you.
I think that's incredible. Yeah, I love that, because that's the best. That's not the best, but it's one of the well-known ones where they say, I'm too old, right? Mm-hmm. I'm too young is you still got time. You'll figure out something. But when I'm too old, it's a defeat. It's a very natural defeatist, no matter how old you are. Can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? Where do you think that comes from?
Right.
I'd love to know where that.
And we can say it, like the man in the mirror. I'm not too old. I'm not too old. But you might need some evidence. You might need some proof.
Jack Handy. Jack Handy. What do you think, Jack Handy? I'm good enough. I'm proud enough. And gosh darn it, I like myself. But yeah, I mean, I'm too old. I love this. That's probably the most practical example for a lot of folks out there.
Yeah, and there's this video. This person, he's an engineer. He started his company in his 70s. In his 70s, and he's very successful now. And he has a TED Talk on about this exactly. You're never too old to start a new thing. So if I find it, I will tag it in.
What was it? And the company you mentioned Hayes.
Hay House.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can. Because then once you identify, then you challenge and you look for evidence, right? Because if you just repeat in front of the mirror, it might not work.
It's not enough.
Evidence,
it might not be enough. Yeah.
Right. Then you can reframe those thoughts into positive or at least neutral statements, right? And then you have to practice self-compassion. That's the third step.
Wait, what was second step then? Did we go?
Is challenging and looking for evidence to challenge those thoughts.
Okay.
Right? Very practical one. And then the third one is self-compassion. That one's hard. It's hard to practice self-compassion. We're too hard on ourselves. We harshly criticize what we say, what we do. So practice self-compassion. Be kind and understanding to yourself. Just as you would to a close friend or a loved one.
Yeah.
And remember, quieting negative self-talk takes time and practice, right? So by consistently practicing these tips, it is possible to cultivate a more positive and self-compassionate inner dialogue and build greater self-respect and self-esteem and self-confidence.
Well, and then see, if you take probably a couple of examples like, oh, I'm too overweight or I'm not, you could, that could trigger you to do exercise before you do something that might cause you to say, I'm too overweight or I'm not physically fit. I can't do 100 push-ups, but I can do 1 or I can do 2. I can't run a marathon, but I could probably walk the block. So it starts with walk. I mean, it's something small. And then over time, you eventually would hit that. I mean, I think these are the self-doubting of, I can't post on social media. I can't record a video, but can you write? You know what I mean? It's like, so you find something that maybe you could, that's the lesser of the two evils. So I think I love what you're saying, because you literally first of all, create awareness. What did I just say? And then challenge yourself. Well, okay, there are,
right?
Yeah.
By challenging yourselves, basically you asking the question, is this true? Like really true? Can I find evidence to prove that it's true or it's false?
Yeah. You and I talked earlier. We talked about, I can't use that because I don't have that kind of software, but now, or that computer. Does your sister have one, or your brother, your mother, the company you work for? Like there's an outlet somewhere. And I think that's a challenge yourself. Look for evidence that could support doing what you just said you couldn't do.
Yes. Yes. And then be self-compassionate, right? Like give yourself a little room to say, okay, it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to be perfect. I'm doing the best I can.
Dr. V, this is incredible. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about how practical, and I don't mean this from like I am getting goosebumps, but it's how practical this is and how simple yet so complicated.
Yes.
And I mean, the complication comes from, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
It takes practice, right? It takes the practice of catching yourself every time you have this thought, right? So that's what I wanted to mention some. Like if you catch yourself, if you like any of the listeners, like I'm too old for this. Okay, you just remember this episode and just remember what are the steps that you have to take. Right. And what you were just saying just takes me to the second action item. Celebrate your accomplishments. Even if you do 1 push-up, right? Because it's just better than it was yesterday. And that's what you have to say, to have that this links the self-compassion with the celebrating your accomplishments. You don't have to be perfect. 1 push-up is enough. Let's celebrate. Because it's the first step towards my goal.
This reminds me. So 𝗫𝗫𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 out of Banff, we've started, she talks about anti-diet.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of diets force you to, set a goal. And if you miss the goal or you're over the goal, like counting calories and things like that. And she said, my clients we work with, so that you look at that bag of chips on the shelf, and you're okay with having it because you celebrate. It's almost a celebration of the other things you've accomplished. I don't know exact things, but I can't, the diet side of it. She said most of her clients come in and nothing's working. I tried this, I tried that. I tried all these programs and none of it worked. And she says, what do you, and she breaks it down into it's not just the diet, it's the lifestyle thing. So you're literally celebrating your accomplishments by grabbing that bag. You just reminded me of that, grabbing that bag of chips on the shelf, because it just sits there and you don't want, because you feel guilty. But if you're not feeling guilty, I think you're right to that point. You celebrate your accomplishments, even if it's 1 chip, because you recognize, I'm saying it's part of that, I can't diet, right? I think, Dr. V, I've lost you.